Good afternoon, everyone. The battle is now underway in Kiev as Russian forces are bombing and advancing on Ukraine's capital. Meanwhile, world leaders are now taking steps to protect against Vladimir Putin's troops from pushing into other countries as well. Natalie Brand has the very latest.
Blasts shook Kyiv Friday as Russian forces continue to advance on Ukraine's capital. A senior U.S. defense official says the Russians have been slowed down by a resistant Ukrainian military bolstered by citizen volunteers. But new satellite images show a large deployment of Russian ground troops and helicopters in Belarus near Ukraine's borders.
To date, the Ukrainians have been fighting fiercely in many places throughout the country. My sense is they're overwhelming force that in a matter of days we could see the capital fall.
NATO says it's activating its response force, marking the first time it will be used for collective security. Thousands more U.S. and allied troops make their way to the eastern flank.
There is no doubt about NATO's readiness to protect and defend all allies.
There is also mounting pressure to cut off Russia from the international banking system known as SWIFT, with more Western leaders now signaling support.
We are looking closely at additional options that may apply appropriate pressure to the Russian Federation, to President Putin.
U.S. officials and members of Congress fear that if Putin succeeds in Ukraine, he could set his sights on other former Soviet countries.
No one knows for sure exactly where Mr. Putin's going to stop. And he's not telling us.
The United Nations Security Council met Friday to vote on a resolution condemning Russia's attack on Ukraine. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Meanwhile, the sports world has also started to take a stand against Russia after its invasion of Ukraine. The Union of European Football Associations pulled its Champions League title game from St. Petersburg. And this morning, Formula One said it had concluded, quote, "It is impossible to hold the Russian Grand Prix in the current circumstances." Before last night's Denver Nuggets Sacramento Kings basketball game, there was a moment of silence as the teams linked arms in show of solidarity for the two Ukrainian players in the National Basketball Association. One is from Sacramento, while the other plays for Toronto. And closer to home, the I-35W bridge in Minneapolis will glow blue and yellow tonight and through the weekend in support of the people of Ukraine. The Department of Transportation shared this photo today saying, "We stand united with Ukrainians here in Minnesota and around the world." We're very close to the light at the end of what's been a very cold tunnel of late. Let's find out first what's happening tonight. Chief Meteorologist Hutch Johnson is here with the details. Hutch?
Yes, changes in weather, and this time for the better as we are enjoying quiet conditions across most of the nation. The satellite and radar, by the way, showing that the only unsettled weather taking place right now across our nation is in the northeast. Other than that, we are extremely quiet. Outdoors, we have blue skies across the entire area, and there's been a bit of a breeze. And that breeze is from the south. It's going to keep us on the warming trend, and for many of us, we'll see temperatures that will drop early, but nowhere near these ridiculous lows. Once again, 20 to 35 below zero, north central Minnesota into portions of Lakes Country in Clearwater County. Right now, look at the warmth. We have warmed to between 10 and 15 degrees in many locations. Wind chills are still a factor thanks to those winds at 5 to 15 miles per hour out of the south. Fargo tonight, temperatures dipping down early, but then rising into the overnight as those south winds are going to be transporting warmer air our way. Same thing for our northern counties. The warm up does carry us into the weekend. However, Mike, we always want to give you a heads up to changes in the forecast. A first alert weather day declared for Friday. I'll have details on that and what else you can expect for the weekend here in just a few minutes.
Looking forward to warmer temps?
Yes.
Thanks. New at 4, the CDC has just released new mask guidance. The number of new COVID-19 infections has dropped 65% in the past couple of weeks. And recognizing that the nation is exhausted by the pandemic, the Biden administration is telling most Americans they can start leaving their face masks home. Naomi Ruckham has the story on how people are reacting.
Looking ahead to the next normal, the Biden administration is loosening mask-wearing guidelines for most Americans.
We're in a stronger place today as a nation with more tools to protect ourselves and our communities from COVID-19.
The CDC says it's switching to a new metric to determine when face masks are recommended in indoor public settings, depending on COVID-19 case counts, hospitalizations, and hospital capacity. The most recent guidelines recommended masking for roughly 95% of the country. With the new policy, it's now closer to 30% in areas with a potentially high burden on healthcare systems. Even though most Americans will now be able to shed their masks, here in New York, that might take some getting used to.
I've got my mask with me, and I'm going to be wearing it in the grocery store and going to the museum.
I think it just kind of depends on the place and the amount of people, and how safe I feel in that environment.
The shift comes as a new Lancet study confronts the tragic toll of the pandemic. More than 5 million children worldwide have lost a parent or caregiver to the virus, which explains why this Los Angeles restaurant owner plans to keep masking.
I have a young one at home. My chef is having twins on the way, so we want to protect ourselves as much as humanly possible.
The administration's newest roadmap says COVID-19 is here to stay, but may join the ranks of other viruses, like the seasonal flu, continuing to threaten lives, but without throwing the nation into crisis. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
And it's my honor to introduce to the country a daughter of former public school teachers, a proven consensus builder, an accomplished lawyer, a distinguished jurist, one of the nation's most prestigious courts. My nominee.
President Joe Biden has selected court judge Ketanji Brown Jackson as his nominee to the Supreme Court. If convicted, she'll be confirmed rather, she will be the first black woman on the Supreme Court and fill the seat that will be vacated by Justice Stephen Breyer when he retires at the end of this term. With the midterm elections coming up and the balance of power at stake in the Senate, the president's decision to nominate a black woman is being greeted enthusiastically by black voters who voted for him in the 2020 election.
I think a black female voice speaks to the experiences of black women across the board, not only in thinking about women from rural areas, but thinking about those from urban spaces and how their experiences are very different than the individuals who are represented right now on the Supreme Court.
Senate Democrats have vowed to move quickly with the confirmation process. Minnesota Senate Republicans are pitching a nearly $8 billion tax cut plan over the next 3 years, which they say would be the largest in state history. The proposal would reduce the lowest tier income tax rate from 5.35% to 2.8%, which lawmakers say would lower taxes for all filers. It would also eliminate taxes on all Social Security benefits. The GOP tax cut plan would use roughly $3.5 billion of the state's $7.7 billion projected surplus. It differs from the more short-term spending proposals from House Democrats for $1,500 bonus checks for frontline workers. Democratic Governor Tim Walz also wants to send checks of $175 or $350 to more than 2.7 million Minnesota households. Employees at John Deere made a chilling discovery this morning.
Said that this guy was a contractor that was up on their roof working, and they got a call from his boss saying that they hadn't heard from him, so they went up and checked on him and believe he's been up there frozen all night.
The call came in before 8 this morning at John Deere Electric Solutions. Authorities tell us the man was performing maintenance work on the building. His name has not been released. A shop along with 2 collector cars and a tractor have been destroyed by fire. It happened yesterday just north of Holly. No one was inside at the time. No one was hurt while fighting the flames. The cause of that fire is still under investigation. A convicted sex offender from the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation has been sentenced to 24 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to abusive sexual contact of a minor. Court documents say 58-year-old Jimmy Moore inappropriately touched a 10-year-old girl while she was sleeping on a couch. Documents also say in 2020, Moore also tried to take inappropriate pictures of her. He has a history of disturbing sexual behavior involving children. He previously spent 10 years in prison for sexual abuse of a minor. As we look back at Black History Month, the family tree of some of the first black settlers in Minnesota extends to Valley News Team's Kaylee Chella, as she just recently discovered. Saturday at 5 p.m., we invite you to join Kaylee as she takes us on a journey exploring those family roots that her grandmother took to her grave. Catch Rooted in Secrets, a Black History Month special, that's Saturday at 5 p.m. right here on KVLY.